Alrighty everyone, hello, my name's Tayden. I'm the creator of the True Bodycam mod for Ready or Not, or whatever game that you want to put it on. This is just a really quick crash course on how to install it. Unfortunately, a lot of you guys had a bit of trouble with that. It is just a ReShade shader, so you know, if you want to skip this video, you can just go install ReShade over your over whatever game you want to throw it in, and crack open truebodycam.fx, put it in your shaders folder, and press home and enable it. That'll do it. But just to start with, I just want to quickly do a very quick fire overview of what this shader actually is, so you know what to expect. So I'm gonna enable the shader here. So what have we got? Well, first and foremost, let's get rid of the UI up there. If you can't tell already, the center crosshair is decoupled from the screen. So this means when I look left, the gun looks left, and when I look right, the gun looks right. So this might seem to the uninitiated basically impossible to do with just post-processing, right? It's just trickery. It's really just trickery. I'll show you how it actually works. So if I crack open my little menu here with a home button, you can see we've got the True Bodycam effects, and this is configured to my setup already, and I'm going to show you guys how to configure it properly, don't worry. But you can see here, if I disable Bodycam decouple, and we'll disable the procedural shake as well, it's back to normal. So what does this actually do? Okay, so I'm going to disable everything. Perfect. Okay, so notice how we've got black borders around the edge of the screen when I move around. This is ultra wide, by the way, so I've got a little more on the left and the right than you would. What this is actually doing is essentially just zooming in the screen, and then after we zoom in the screen, the shader tracks my mouse coordinates on the screen. So if I move my mouse left, you can imagine where the mouse cursor is on the screen, and it basically just pans the zoom in the opposite direction of the mouse. And so you can see how that actually works. If I move my mouse to the right. So the way I came up with this shader initially was, there's a shader called magnifying glass. We can find it here. Or just disable my shader at the same time. Active to top. So this is magnifying glass, and I'm just going to quickly reset the shader. Funnily enough, it still has the same settings from when I was messing around with it. So here's how this shader works, right? It's literally just a magnifying glass, simple as that. But if you put lens radius up to like 100, then this makes it zoom the whole screen. And this is what that actually looks like. It's a magnifying glass. If you were to invert the mouse coordinates of the magnifying glass, you can see it doesn't quite work moving right and left. It kind of creates more like a weighty lag than it does anything else. But if you just were to invert the direction that the zoom goes in, that's the exact same effect. That's what that does. Cool. So now that you guys know what it does, and it looks all pretty and all the rest of it, I'm going to quickly show you guys how to actually install this. Alrighty, we're back on my desktop now. Cool, so let's go over an installation. So what do we need? First and foremost, we need ReShade. Okay, so crack open your browser of choice, find ReShade, open up the ReShade website. Here you go, you click download. Here's the big thing. If you want depth of field, you will need depth buffer access. In order to get depth buffer access, you need ReShade with add-on support. Huge disclaimer on this. If you're going to use depth buffer in ReShade, don't get banned for cheating. This will work in online games, but games and all cheat software they know when something's being injected. So don't mess with it. I've already got it in here, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. So I'm just going to cancel my download, but you just download that. That's done. Cool. So just please keep in mind, if you use it in an online game with anti-cheat software or anti-fiddling software or what have they got, don't put it in there. It's just not worth. Some games, like, you know, obviously Ready or Not will be fine with it, but a lot of like basic multiplayer games, like co-op games and stuff, won't care. But if it's competitive in any way, just don't do it. It's not worth your account. Cool. So let's move on. So now we've got ReShade. Let's go to ReShade. This is just where I downloaded it. I'm going to open up the newest version, ReShade 6.7.1. Before I do that, actually, let me uninstall it completely from Ready or Not, right? Including the shader itself, just so you guys know. So it's in here. So it's, you go to ready or not, binaries, Win64, and then this is where you install ReShade. I'll show you in a second. I'm just going to get rid of all of my silly stuff in here that I don't need. I think it's DXGI that we disable. Get rid of that and that. That'll do. Bang. Gone. Okay. So that ReShade is completely disabled. Anything ReShade related besides that log is now gone. Cool. So we can head back. Right. Crack open ReShade. Here we go. It says don't use it for online games. You get banned. Okay. Now we just need to find where this is. For me, have I got it open in here still? Yeah. I just got to copy the file path. So you can click up here in the file path. Control C. Click browse. Click again. Control V. There you go. You just use this one. Press open. Done. Next. Okay. This will select your option automatically for you. Sometimes games use Vulkan. Sometimes games use OpenGL, depending. You can also get like the Vulkan translation layers and stuff for DirectX for those of you who like that kind of stuff. Or if it's DirectX 9, it'll select it automatically. So just press next. Okay. Here's where you can select all your effects. For your sake, you don't need to select any of these. My shader will work without anything else. It's a shader by itself. These are downloading other shaders. The Bodycam mod is a shader. I'm going to check them all. I want all of them. So we're just going to wait for this. It's a pretty small download, so it's pretty quick. Just going to go through, download any new shaders that are on the Git repository, anything interesting that we can experiment with later. I love ReShade, so I always want literally all of the shaders on my computer. People always make cool stuff. Don't be too quick now. There we go. Cool. Add-ons. You really don't have to worry about this unless you know what you're doing. So you can just skip. Cool. And we're done. Finish. Okay. ReShade is now installed. I'm going to show you by launching the game. Alrighty. So we're in game now. So you can see at the top of the screen. I hope the recording does capture it. I'll have to see in post. But there's a big loading bar at the top of the screen. It says ReShade 6.7.1. It's compiling all of these effect shaders, and then once that's done, we'll actually be able to see what it's doing. Happy days. So now we can press home. Okay, where is the home key? Some people will ask if it's their first time installing ReShade or maybe looking at their keyboard. It's above your arrow keys. So if you just count from the middle row upwards all the way to the top, press home. That'll open this menu. For the sake of this, I'm skipping the tutorial. Our Bodycam mod is not in here yet. I'm just showing you that ReShade is installed, okay? If you have never worked with ReShade ever again, I know this kind of looks intimidating. This is magic. All of these things are different screen effects that you can add to it. Spend like 4 hours in here. It's amazing. There's all sorts of cool stuff. Also, like, what is this? Some kind of like downscale and then like upscale linear interpolation thing. This looks like a RetroArch shader. Like, there's motion effects and stuff. This looks like a lens flare thing. You can do like color grading and stuff if you like this thing. This doesn't seem to be doing much, does it? But you get my meaning. Long story short, there's a lot of cool stuff that you can go and do on here. You go advanced CRT. So let's move on. I'm going to show you how to install the actual Bodycam mod now. Okay, we're back on the desktop. Right, we're going to go to my Nexus mod page. We'll just go ready or not. Whoops. Or not Nexus. There we go. It's going to think I'm a robot because I'm using a VPN. Cool bananas. Alright, it should still be on the front page somewhere. Somewhere down here. There it is, right there. Cool. Find the mod. Click on this thing. Go files. Manual download. Slow download. And it'll download. Cool. For me, I'm literally just going to put this in the folder already. So where do we want to put that? So navigate to common, Steam apps common, ready or not, binaries, Win64. I'll show you how to get there. So from here, ready or not, binaries, Win64. Here we go. This is where we install ReShade. You need ReShade shaders, and then you just drop it in here. Cool. We're going to do the same thing we did when we installed ReShade, which is just copy the file path, Control V in here. We're going to drop True Bodycam as the zip file into that folder. We're going to open it up, right click, extract here. Windows has an extraction tool automatically. I use WinRAR, and I've also got 7-zip installed because for some reason some mod authors say that WinRAR breaks things. I don't know if that's true or not. But you can see when you extract it, you've got true body cam in there. You can delete this zip now. That's fine. Cool. Let's launch back up and I'll show you how to configure the mod. Alrighty, we're back in game now. I'm just going to quickly check my options. There you go. ReShade is compiled all the things. Okay, cool. It's still on ultra wide. Sometimes my monitor decides to make this game go in 4K. Cool. We're just going to click continue. We're actually going to get in game. Let this thing load up for us. And then I'll show you that body cam is just sitting there. I'll show you how to find it, search for it, all that fun stuff. Here we go. Here we are. Cool. So if I press home on the keyboard, here we go. And we search for true. There you go. True body cam. Enable that. Bang. Okay. Notice how it's all blurry and weird. Now, why does that happen? Very good question. This is a very classic ReShade problem. So if we disable depth of field, we can see why it's doing that. And totally my bad for not including this. I did not think about the preprocessor definitions. If we go edit global preprocessor definitions here, click that. Depth input is reversed. Change that to a 1. So basically it's saying the Z buffer, which is like a texture the game renders in black and white, where white is close to you and black is into infinity. It reads depth to the pixel. That is backwards. And so we need to tell ReShade that that is the case so that all the shaders can read the information properly. Bang, perfect. Cool, there you go. There you can see the depth of field is now working as intended. We should go active to top. Click this button if you can't see it after it's been activated. So we can see if we disable the depth of field. That works much better now. Cool, so you might notice, Tade, you're in ultra wide, but you've got the vignette is so tight around your screen. I know, I've reconfigured it for you guys because I know most of you use 16:9 aspect ratio. I'm a freak for using ultra wide, but it's just my preference. So I'm going to actually show you how I would configure it for my system. Cool. First and foremost, just take a moment to notice that it pretty much all works automatically. Like this is without any of this is completely fresh setup, completely new ReShade, completely new preset. It should just be using ReShade preset, the default preset up there. Completely fresh. So this is what it'll look like out of the box. Just quickly on your game settings, before we get into this, I'm going to go settings here and select toggle key to end. There you go. Here are some prerequisites. Options. Find your field of view. I forget where it is. It's down here somewhere, or maybe it's in graphics. There you go. World field of view up to 120. Weapon field of view to custom and up to 120 as well. If this is just like default, you can see our weapon kind of comes closer to our screen there. That's not what we want. When we activate this, all of a sudden our weapon's going to look terrible because it's too crushed in. This is just an artistic thing that video games do to make the proportions of your gun look a bit better to the eye. And it's a fair effect. I think it works pretty well, but for our use case here, yeah. 120. We want to squeeze as much field of view out of this as possible. In fact, and just to remind you guys, this shader will work on literally any game that ReShade works in. You don't even need the depth buffer at all because you can just disable, the depth of field in here if you don't want depth buffer access. Yeah, but some games you can use the console and just crank up the FOV. I've used it in games like Halo Reach, where I've cranked the FOV up to like 140. And it just gives you more field of view, basically, after the screen is zoomed in and stuff. It is a destructive shader, and I'll show you how it works in a second. So let's re-enable our effects. So what are we looking at here? So this is the start of the shader here. There's some instructions. So first and foremost, set the in-game FOV as high as possible, 110 plus, just max it out. Use FOV correction below to zoom back in. That's already set for you, but you can, if it feels too zoomed in, I'll show you that. Interestingly, the speed at which the camera zooms around the screen is dependent completely on your mouse cursor's DPI. The reason that is because the shader itself tracks the mouse position, like your actual hardware cursor position in the screen coordinate space, which means that you can't just like increase the sensitivity inside of the shader. Trust me, I tried, and I just did not have the programming know-how. I have this very strange effect where we have sensitivity curve bias. So this like adds a curve modifier over the sensitivity. So it's you still get to the same place at 0 and 1, but it might start off slower and get faster, but yeah, it's not very good. I would recommend keeping that at 0. If you ever lose where the shader is, by the way, just disable it and enable it again. It'll show up. So I'm going to set that back to 0. It's not good. I'm sorry. I'm very, just so you know, half of this shader I was using like AI assist, like code assistant tools, because I'm terrible with HLSL. I'm a game developer, by the way. This was not my proudest work, but I kind of just wanted to get it done. Anyway, I digress. So, what are we looking at? Let's go step by step through all this kind of stuff. By the way, guys, if you want to run away now, that's totally fine. We're at the point now where you know how to install it. Go and mess with it yourself. But I'm going to show you how to actually configure this thing. So I'm just finding zoom factor here. We're going to set this to 1. So this is just our default game. This is the game is enabled. Oh, it is a little bit zoomed in, but it's just because the ratios are wrong, but whatever. I'm using ultra wide. So we're going to go effect by effect now. Let's start with our depth of field, shall we? So, what does the depth of field actually do? It's very, very subtle. But when we enable it, obviously, it adds a bit of a blur to our weapon. But this also acts as a mask for the sharpening pass. So if I enable sharpening here, you can see that there aren't sharpening artifacts where I enable the depth of field. It's because the sharpening filter is weighted by the same depth buffer weights as my depth of field is, essentially. It's just a tricky way to get a more effective depth of field. Just so you know, this is possibly the most performant depth of field known to mankind. There should be a DOF pass here. There you go. The actual DOF pass itself is like 0.06 milliseconds. And the smoothing pass is somewhere around the same. Or the depth of field might be... I suppose we're not using much there, are we? Anyway, there's a smoothing pass as well, which we can enable. This is just if you do really, really low samples. So if you want, you can reduce this down to 2 samples for depth of field, which will further increase the depth of field performance. You really don't need it, but you can crank this up to crazy amounts if you want. It's not going to make a visual difference just because of the way the smoothing works. It's using kernel-based smoothing, so it won't matter. But you can see if I disable the post-smooth... God, you can't even tell, can you? You can just tell around the ring, but I reckon that'll be compressed out by YouTube, so you won't even be able to see. Cool. Let's move on to the interesting stuff. FOV correction. So why do we have FOV correction? I'm just going to de-zoom the screen again. So why on earth do we have FOV correction? Very good question. Because when we do a Bodycam decouple, when we get to the edges of the screen, we don't want it to look like it's the edge of the screen. Field of view, the way that we do it in modern games, uses essentially a projection technique that's destructive to the camera. So it's called panini. I think that's how it's pronounced. But long story short, without FOV correction, ignore the zoom out, but just look at pay attention to the scale of this arrow here. And then as I get to the edge of the screen, it stretches. Right, and so what FOV correction does is it kind of curls the screen in a little bit. Now it's a little bit too zoomed in here, but you get what I mean in a moment. So you can set the manual zoom here in and out if you want. This is going to be more zoomed in than the final result because there is a couple of layers going on here. But if I zoom it out, or better yet, disable auto crop, which automatically pushes it in, you can see the scale of the arrow stays pretty much the same around the whole horizon. That is super important when we're using our decoupling. It just prevents weird artifacts and gross looking things. Also, it kind of gives a body cam effect by itself, doesn't it? You can see the center of the screen kind of warps. You're never going to get it perfect. You got to do some crazy like depth grid access stuff, which I don't know how to do. Okay, next. Super depth 3D. Oh my god, hold on. Let me get rid of this shader because it stays here. Super depth. Sorry, super depth 3D. Wonder who made this shader. Did you know your shader pops up in my definitions no matter what I do? Bang! Gone. Just deleted it from existence. right, let's recompile. Okay, cool. We're back. So, true Bodycam. Depth of field, happy days. Awesome. Now we get to go to our Bodycam decouple. Let's just quickly enable the auto crop again. So, the decoupling. Here we are. Alright, so a lot of you have mentioned that sometimes it feels too zoomed in. It's unfortunately a pretty hard problem to solve. You can zoom it out. The idea is, for your screen space, especially at 16 by 9, you want to zoom it out as far as you can until you can't see the black edges of the screen anymore when you're all the way towards one side of the screen, right? So in my case, with the decoupling, I probably could go a little bit more, but if I go to the FOV manual zoom here and bring it out, you can see there is a bit of space. You know, I can get it in there. The problem is when I start to enable the procedural shake, which acts on its own layer. And so that'll move towards the right and kind of around a little bit as well. I tried to get the math right with keeping it restrained. There's just so many layers to it that it just becomes more hassle than it's worth. I'm still going to look into it later. But for now, you're going to have to just leave a little bit of leeway for it. So for me, 0.65 is generally the way to go. So the procedural shake itself, how does that work? It's pretty simple. It's just 3 noise layers that get layered over the top of each other, essentially. And it gives you this kind of nice wibbly wobbly camera. The 3 layers are configurable. So if we go and find it here, these are all collapsible, by the way, in order. So our procedural shake, you've got macro, medium, and micro. There's also a jitter speed and amplitude. There was at one point a variance, like a frequency jitter, but it was too complicated to maintain. But I might look into that again, but you won't notice that. But yeah, if you want the biggest shake to be even bigger, crank up the amplitude, and it'll start to really sway around. If you like that kind of stuff, it's cool. You could probably use my shader in a few different cinematic ways as well, if you're that kind of person. But I keep mine at 0.2, 0.1 if you get motion sickness, or you even turn it off if you get motion sickness, honestly. So that kind of does it for the procedural shake. Lens distortion. This is a fun one. This curls the edges in a bit. This is the most non-destructive way that I can do this. Way this works is it grabs we keep track of the pixels that we've discarded up before the crop, and then we basically inject them back in and furl them. It's not as complicated as it sounds. I made that sound complicated, but basically I wanted to keep some of the screen as much as possible to give you guys some viewing angles. So with the curl on, normally in a lot of these shaders it's destructive because it curls the screen outwards, but I'm curling the cropped portion inwards so that you guys have a little more screen space. So you can see here it's actually bringing a bit of the screen back. This really sells that kind of body cam warp as well. So you can see, the doors and stuff around the edges, they kind of curl in. This is super configurable. I love configuring this setting because you can get some pretty cool effects out of the barrel strength. So obviously you can go crazy with it and you start to see the void on the outside. You've also got a center dead zone. So if you find that it's distorting your weapon in a weird way, you can kind of increase the dead zone a bit, or you want a really furled edge like that, you can do that. There's fall off stuff. Same thing with you can do some weird stuff with it. And there's a scale compensation slider as well, where you can change the whole amplitude of it. And you can even get a little door peephole if you want. But I just keep it on the defaults because that's just the way I like it. A lot of these defaults are configured to my preference, so I make such a big point to configure it to your preference because at the end of the day, it's a reshade. That's what it's all about. Cool. So, lens casing. I love this shader. This is one of my favorite things that I made. This Fresnel effect. I've done this before with messing with like the ambient light shaders and stuff. But basically, I went all out and I've created this wonderful lens casing effect where it basically box blurs the scene behind it. and then it's a bit cheaper than that. It's using differential samples, but long story short, there's a very blurry scene that the lens can see, and it's just sampling those pixels, and then there's a MIP of the scene, so like I guess a lower resolution version of it, to blur the edges, and it just ends up great. It just really sells it. For me, I set this to 2.3 because I'm on ultra wide. This is the default setting though for 16:9. This brings it together for me. When I'm looking around here, I'm like, yeah, this is what it's all about. Yeah, it just feels right. It just feels right, doesn't it? Cool. Next, we've got chromatic aberration. This is a simple one. Some people will hate this. You can turn it off, obviously, if you don't like it. I like it, especially, I mean, look, of all places to have chromatic aberration, it's a Bodycam shader, right? It just makes sense to me. The chromatic aberration shader applies over the top of the lens casing because that's the way physical cameras work. If you don't like it, obviously disable it. There's a bunch of settings in there as well, so you can change the intensity of it and the edge fall off and whatever. Yeah, you can make it go all the way outside if you want, or just crank it right up. But I like it at default. Sometimes it can be a little bit overbearing, like sometimes it comes into the edges too far, but I don't notice it after a little bit. It kind of immerses me, so happy with that. Have we done our sharpening pass yet? Yes, we did. We actually left the sharpening pass on. This is about as simple as it gets. It's a sharpening pass. Crank it up. It's pre-sharpening, so it's using a kind of luma sharpen. It's a high pass technically. To basically pre-sharpen the image before we zoom in. It just adds a couple of extra fat pixels around the edges of highlights and dark spots, so that once we zoom in, it's got a better upscale. Without it, it does look quite blurry. It's a pretty blurry image. Remember, this is a destructive shader, so you're going to lose a bit. Okay. JPEG artifacts. This is a big one. This is, God, one of my favorite effects. This really, really sells it. I do wonder how this is going to come through on YouTube, because obviously YouTube is going to compress it anyway. This is what makes it feel like a video. It is a very heavily optimized JPEG artifacting shader. It's still quite expensive. It's about 0.5 milliseconds on the GPU, which, if you know anything about shaders, is pretty heavy. We're running at about 1 millisecond right now. If I disable it, we're running at about 0.6. So yeah, it's about 0.4 milliseconds. But just for a bit of context, the other JPEG shader that we have on here, which I absolutely used as a base reference, set the compression strength down a little bit. If we head to the statistics here, theirs is, I believe, 1.3 milliseconds by itself. So their shader is more expensive than the entire Bodycam shader. So no offense to them, obviously they did a great job, but their whole shader was the reason that I can, include my own. But the biggest difference in optimization there was basically they were calculating everything in real time. It's just been baked into constants now, so it sped it up by a lot. So yeah, that makes a huge difference. Tweak this again. You can really go crazy with the JPEG compression. It's down here, I believe, because it's a very, very end post effect. But yeah, you can crank it up if you want. We disabled it. Whoops. I was wondering why that wasn't working. I was like, get out. There's not a bug in my shader. But yeah, you can crank it right up. You can put it up to 100 and just completely destroy your game if you want. It's good fun. And you can also put an artifact bias on it for chromatic compression if you really want to get a weird look to it. It's not for me, but I included it in there because actual compression algorithms have something like that. Cool. And now we can move on to color grading. This is another big one. All of these are obviously going to be huge differences, but this is going to change the black levels and the white levels of the scene. This is without auto exposure, so it is going to be a bit darker. But, in normal cameras, they're going to, like in the Bodycam style cameras that you normally see, they're going to have clipped blacks and clipped whites, and they're going to have kind of that desaturated feel to them. So I've just basically tuned this to my preference again. If we find it in here, color grading, you can see that you can change the mid-tone gamma and stuff, which is a very popular thing to do in these Bodycam shaders. You can crank up the black crush if you want, or put it all the way down. Same thing with the white crush, depending on your preference. You can lift up the shadows, which is very basic, or you can reduce the saturation or increase it to your preference there as well. Awesome. So ISO noise. We're going to enable this one first before we do auto exposure. This does not do very much. You can see it kind of changes the color of my gun. As soon as we enable auto exposure, though, it's just exposed the scene down. Interesting. We can see, actually, there's a place in this map. Give me a second. I get lost in this little maze. I think I've spent like 10 hours in here. Probably 20. If we go over here, there's this little cage. If we let the auto exposure bring up, I have no idea if this will show on YouTube, but it's grainy. If we disable the ISO noise, it goes away. You can definitely see the luma change there at least. Without auto exposure, obviously, it's going to be dark in here as well. Keep that in mind. This is going to simulate the ISO noise floor that's simulated in normal cameras. It basically is just photons hitting the lens and the software in the camera not being able to resolve it properly. And it happens when you expose up from a dark scene. You've probably seen it in your own photos before. And lastly, bloom and lens flares. This is a very, very tricky little shader. So for nerds out there, it's just using separable Gaussians at different MIPs. But if you notice that, it looks an awful lot like internal lens refractions, doesn't it? Turn that off there so you can see what that's actually doing. It is parallaxed, so there is a sampling bias, which means that when the camera moves around a little bit, the bloom can seem like it moves around a lot. That is kind of intentional. I wanted that dynamic feeling. Also, it's my fault for the math on it is based on the actual noise value of the procedural shake combined, and not the post result. So it kind of looks like it's moving early. But I'm not fixing that because I like the way it looks, to be honest. But yeah, it gives that nice little lens effect. Be careful with this because it's easy to crank up too high. And it's really easy to overdo it. Just keep it subtle. Just keep it subtle. You don't need anything too crazy with this shader. It just adds the extra little bit of you'll notice it in the corner of your eye, if that makes sense. And that's it. That's the whole shader. Again, sometimes I'm guessing at a 4K resolution, some people might find it zooms in too much. There are some extra dials and whistles in here. The bloom and lens flares have their own, has its own settings. Obviously, you can change the blur steps and whatever, scattering radius. So does the depth of field. You can change all of our. There's an autofocus and all sorts of stuff. Let me just quickly hide this. And in final framing down here, which you could put afterwards, but it doesn't affect the lens casing. You can see that doesn't quite de-zoom, but if you use a combination between the final framing, the Bodycam decouple, just quickly, I didn't really touch on this, did I? The max offset here determines how much the camera is able to pan and zoom around. This is your decoupling amount, basically. How far can your crosshair move left or right across the screen? This is pretty valuable to know. So if you prefer to have a field of view of 200, and you are okay with having a blurry post image because it's cropping everything, you can absolutely set that to something higher. 300's about my limit, maybe 350, something like that. Just keep in mind when you change this, you may need to adjust the cropping settings and the FOV correction settings, because you will start to see the void. Because at the end of the day, it is zooming around the screen and you're going to get to the corners at some point. So just keep that in mind as well. Awesome. I'm going to have to chop up this video a lot. I don't want it to be too long, but I just wanted to go over actually what this is. I'm going to end the video with a raid on probably Ends of the Earth. because it's got a really nice section up in the attic, and I can show the mod off a little bit. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Hopefully this actually cleared some things up for those of you who wanted to install it and you know, are at least interested in this kind of, you know, body cam simulation, cool shaders like this. There are a lot of them out there, and I think something that affects the crosshair was well needed. One last note: all my mods are completely open source shareware. Like, you do not need to give permission. You don't need to ask for permission. You don't need to give me credit to share this mod around, modify it, post it on other websites. You could do whatever you want with it. Same thing applies to all of my mods for things like Dying Light and Dying Light the Beast. You know, if you want to take that, update it, change it, whatever, post it under your own name, does not matter. Guys, we make mods for fun. They should be fun. The more hands it gets in, the better, right? Use this on all sorts of other games. I hope to see this in, you know, the OG SWATs, Rainbow Six Vegas 2, heck, all sorts of stuff. Just have fun with it, and I hope you enjoy the gameplay.
Behind you.
Talk to lead. Negotiations have failed and suspects have dug in. Entry team, go when ready.
Let me see those hands.
Hands up! Drop to your knees!
Don't move.
Hands up above your head!
Police,
Wait,
don't
I
move.
can't.
Police, get your hands
explained
up!
everything.
I got it.
Don't shoot.
Don't worry. This isn't about you.
Hey, wait.
Good to
I don't
go.
want any more trouble.
Entry team to talk. Sit
Lead,
ready.
this is
Why
Talk.
you're mad.
Get down on the
Drilling
floor!
is
Police,
bound.
get down! Get down on your knees, hands! Police, drop the weapon! Drop the weapon and put your... Police, you're under arrest! Freeze!
I'm not getting taken away from my family. You're gonna have to kill me.
Drop it! I can still get out of this! Police!
Got this down.
Get down! Get down! Enter the room and clear. Getting into place. Breaching! Good here. You're in my way, sir. Post up and cover. Moving up.
What will happen to our family?
Good.
Get the door. Clear it.
All right.
Move in. Clear it. Enter the room and clear.
Copy that.
My wife.
Open it on the left.
Medicine.
Goody,
Cancer.
I'll get the closet. Looks clear over here, boss. Light stick out.
Having fun, bitch?
Provide support.
I got you.
Don't fuck with me, bro. You fuck. Fuck you, man.
Element to talk.
Talk to entry team. Proceed with mission.
Can't go on like this. How much more can I take?
Got a bag. We have
This
one
is
dead
Talk.
suspect here.
Proceed with your mission.
Enter and clear. Police, down on the ground! Down on the ground, now! Lead to talk.
Talk to Element. Trailers notified.
Lead to talk. We have one
Element,
suspect
this
down.
is Talk. Proceed with mission.
Go on like this.
Weapons
Talk to
on
lead.
site.
Secure the area and we'll send
Parents would have
forensics
no
in.
idea.
Lead, this is Talk. Nicely done, entry team. Roll in.